Kenneth Arnold, an amateur pilot from Idaho, was flying his little plane, a Call Air A2, over Mineral, Washington. The skies were clear, there was a light breeze. Arnold, who was en route to an air show in Oregon, was doing a little exploring on the side, near Mount Rainier. A Marine Corps C-46 transport aeroplane had gone down in the area recently, and there was a $5,000 reward for the person who found the wreckage. Suddenly, as Arnold would later recall, he saw a bright light, just a flash, like a glint of sun as it hits a mirror when the glass is angled just so. It had a bluish tinge. At first, he thought the light must have been coming from another plane. When he looked around though, all he could see was a DC-4. It seemed to be flying around 15 miles away from him. It was not flashing. And then the lights came again, this time in a series. 9 flashes in rapid succession. What did Arnold see that day? Or, more to the point, what would he say that he had seen? In the summer of '47, at the dawn of the Cold War, when the U.S. Army Air Forces sent out a shocker of a press release announcing they recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, they of course quickly recanted the statement by instead saying it was just a remnant of a failed weather balloon experiment. So, what was going on here? Apparently, the U.S. was launching very high altitude balloons to test the jet streams for radioactive particles that could have been an indicator the USSR had tested an atomic bomb. The project was highly classified. When one of the balloons came down in Roswell, the military went out and collected all the parts and tried to hush it up. Hence, the back and forth between the statements. But was it all just a big cover-up? Theories. Edgar Mitchell. Kenneth Arnold's sighting of UFOs occurred on June 24, 1947. The Roswell crash was in July 1947. Is there a link between these events? The real answer to this is that nobody, other than the people who were directly involved, know the details. We can be certain something happened out of the ordinary, because weather balloons and conventional military activity were all very commonly experienced in this part of the country. There being several bases and operations nearby, why was this any different? We can take the conventional accounts, and we can look at the more exotic descriptions, but I think what Edgar Mitchell said is very interesting, regardless of your take on the events. You might recall that Edgar Mitchell was one of the team astronauts who went to the moon on Apollo 14. He was the lunar module pilot on the mission, and he was a very intelligent, accomplished man. That is an understatement. Edgar Mitchell held degrees that most of us do not even know existed. Anyway, Edgar Mitchell grew up around the Roswell area, coincidentally, and because of his standing in the community and his being an astronaut, a lot of what he called the old-timers in the area came to confide in him about the events of the Roswell crash. It is up to you what you think about this event, of course, and you will encounter a lot of self-styled experts who will dismiss it in a casual, self-assured manner, because how ridiculous, right? Except something did happen near Roswell in 1947. And the people Edgar Mitchell spoke with revealed this. They had been warned to never speak of it, and they had been told their families would suffer and their businesses would be ruined. These people had reached old age and felt the burden of what they had experienced. And Mitchell was a trusted local man to who they felt comfortable confessing. And Mitchell relates their stories. You might be interested to listen for yourself. Philip Corso. Along with people of Edgar Mitchell's caliber, we have Colonel Philip Corso, who was an Army intelligence operative, a senior officer who had served at the Pentagon and managed the Foreign Intelligence Desk. Corso worked under Major Trudeau, and the Major had told Corso that he was to keep his work with the Roswell components quiet until after the Major's death. Philip Corso wrote a book about his work with apparently alien technology and how he seeded this technology in several tech companies' R&D departments. This sounds bizarre to you and I because it is outside the normal sphere of experience, but we should follow the advice of Aristotle and consider ideas even if we wind up not accepting them, right? You can read Corso's account in his book, The Day After Roswell. He also gave several interviews, in one of which he said this. Anyway, here you have some materials to be going on with. I think this is pretty compelling and interesting. Don't be putting off asking questions, because there are a lot of know-it-alls who claim they can tell you this is all rubbish. No shortage of those. Personally, I think Edgar Mitchell is pretty hard to beat as an authority. And even if 25% of what Philip Corso says is accurate, well, We live in a remarkable universe. Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian Defense Minister and Transport Minister, also found Corso's book compelling, and he reports looking into this account in great detail. Being a former defense minister means you can access information and cultivate networks most of us can only dream of. Authenticity. If people such as these support this Roswell account, I think minor league journalists and ordinary science degree qualified naysayers are completely out of their depth and certainly not qualified to challenge the details. This topic and the various details which it describes are always trigger points for the know-it-alls and the self-satisfied debunkers. Obviously, Edgar Mitchell must have examined the stories and satisfied himself that the people relating it was of the highest integrity. Call it hearsay if you wish, don't believe it if you wish, but I think it is all coming out slowly that we have been visited by people not of this world. The US Navy is releasing gun camera footage of actual sightings, and evidence of very strange encounters in Rendlesham Forest is very well documented. There is more to this matter than is admitted or revealed by official reports. It will all come out over the next 15 to 10 years. Remember, Edgar Mitchell was not some publicity-seeking hack. He walked on the moon on Apollo 14. He was the lunar landing module pilot, and he has nothing to gain from revealing his account. Who do you trust? A man such as Mitchell, or second-rate journalists who pretend to have science qualifications to put people off this subject with cheap ridicule? The extent and intensity of the ridicule seem to be directly proportional with the nearer one approaches topics of potentially disruptive qualities. Many people in this world would rather you do not consider this subject seriously. And who stands to lose much of their political and economic power if the public finally does catch on to the true scale of visitation our world has experienced? There are simply too many people of impeccable integrity and qualifications that have dared to present their truth for this subject to be without foundation. But of course, you have to make your conclusions. I think there is truth to be found. I am not sure that the same type or style of craft that Arnold saw was what crashed at Corona. There is an even better connection, though, to another crash. When the USA brought down the Roswell vehicle to study, using an experimental form of radar, the Brits wanted their own. In 1954, they did just that. And that story is the one that will break open the entire UFO phenomenon, because they actually were in communication with the craft, and very probably, in my opinion, used treachery to bring it to a crash landing. It wasn't a hoax. It was a misunderstanding that became a tall tale. There were no aliens at Roswell. There was a top-secret Army project using high-altitude balloons to spy on Soviet nuclear tests. This was before satellites, so balloons were the best they could do, and it worked. But one of the balloons crashed. The media went flying saucer crazy, and at first the Army went with it because it was a great cover story for them. So, what happened? There are too many versions of the Roswell incident to conclude. Also, there would appear to be witnesses who recollected more about the incident later than what they said at the time, once it became apparent that the whole thing could become commercialized with the help of conspiracy theorists. It appears to have degenerated into a tourist attraction with little value for scientific investigation, so we will probably never know if it was a USSR nuke detector balloon disguised as a weather balloon or a UFO. So there you are, guys. I hope this video offers some good insight. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, thanks for watching.